She didn't give me details. No, just I got the word from her, but she was like,
Okay.
You know
It's excellent, but it was misfiring, so it needed spark plugs. It had just tripped 100,000 miles, so I got all new spark plugs, battery, oil change, and everything about. Well, it really needed it anyway, so it was fine, but kind of hurt the pocketbook a little bit. That's awesome. Had to be done. All right, you guys, we're going to be very dialed down from what I just did in Blissful. I did some fancy poses that are not gentle. I did turn the air on so that it wouldn't be too hot when we started. But our theme for today is it's a constant reminder to let go. And letting go and releasing falls in line with the yogic principle of a part, which means attachments. And so that's what we're attempting to do. You know, when you're meditating and distractions are coming in through the senses, or your mind is wanting to roll in different directions, you have to stay committed to whatever technique you're choosing for your meditation in order to free up the mind. Just like we do the physical asanas in order to free up the stress and tension or things that we're holding in the body, as well as focusing on what to cleanse and purify the heart. Well, a couple weeks ago, I took my son to see a movie called One Love. And that One Love is based on Bob Marley and his life and his music. And his album, Exodus, was rated the #1 album of the 20th century for its positive influence, for its impact, for being known worldwide. And he grew up pretty impoverished in Jamaica. And his mother was Jamaican, his dad was an Englishman, and his dad didn't want anything to do with him, so he had no relationship with his father. And during a time where things were getting kind of unsettled in Jamaica, his mother left with his sibling to move to America to create a better life. But he was already a teenager at this point, and he was meshed in his band and music, and he had also become somewhat adopted by the Rastafarian community, and he didn't want to leave, so he stayed. And there was a point in Jamaica's history where I believe it was in the 70s, where there was a lot of political unrest, so much divide that it was about to erupt in civil war. And it got to the point where he wanted to put on a free concert because he believed in his message and he believed in music, and he believed that music could bring people together, and the message that he was bringing hopefully set them straight so that the fighting would stop. Well, his lyrics can be somewhat political because he's thinking about social justice. He sings about peace and love and freedom. And the history of how the Jamaicans ever even got to Jamaica, you know, through the slave trade from Africa. And so that's what I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you know a lot of the songs. But there was one point where he wanted to have that free concert, again, hoping to bring people together, and it still got politicized. And so after the concert, someone comes into his home and literally shoots him. And he sees the shooter. He's not, you know, carrying a weapon or anything, and he's looking at the guy like, really, are you gonna do this to me? And he just takes the bullet. Meanwhile, he didn't realize his wife had already been shot outside the house, and then one of his managers was actually shot in the head. They all three survived, and the story continues. But as it continues, he knew that he needed to send his wife and his children up to America to stay with his mom. He was going to escape to London, and he was going to figure things out, you know. He ended up creating another album, which was Exodus. And basically the story goes, and if you see the movie, I'm not giving the movie away because it's just too good not to see. He comes back to Jamaica when he feels like it's time, when things are starting to settle down, and he was welcomed with a very warm reception. And of course, he led a concert and brought the two rival political parties together. There's like footage of him bringing them together on stage and holding their hands up in the air, trying to unify the people. And anyway, the shooter returns to his house and says, "I'm so sorry, please forgive me." And at the beginning part of the movie, where he was getting kind of immersed into the Rastafarian community, he was being told, like, we don't believe in me or you or they or them because that creates division. And he says, oh, okay, I get it, it's unity. And they said, we say I and I. We say I-nity instead of unity. And so at the end, when the shooter comes to him and wants forgiveness, he says, I hold no vengeance towards you whatsoever. And he comes up and he starts tapping the shooter's heart. He was like, only I, because he doesn't say you, right? Only I, meaning himself, can redeem himself. Only the shooter can forgive himself. He's already been forgiven by Bob. So this is the lesson today, is what are we carrying around that's heavy, that's a burden, that's a fear, that's a block, that's a trauma, that's a heaviness or grudge? Because we're only imprisoning our own self when we hold on to it. And that's the point of the yogic principle of aparigraha, because the goal of yoga is freedom. So if we want to imprison ourselves, we just stay in the cycle of suffering. I absolutely detest the common phrase, or what we've been kind of living by, which is, we can get through the hard stuff, we can do hard stuff. I don't want to do hard stuff anymore. I'm done with hard stuff. I'm done with suffering. Done. And if you feel done with all that too, think about his lyric in Redemption Song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free up our minds. None but ourselves can free up our minds. It's up to us. We're responsible. And to tie this back in with last week's practice, when I went to the Gethsemane Monastery, and I was listening to Father Carlos speak, Father Carlos was saying the same thing. He was saying, you know, I know people think Christianity is all about judgment. He said, but really, it's not. We tend to judge ourselves. We are our own worst judge. And we have to let things come. And it goes back to that formula: accept, forgive, accept and forgive, accept and forgive, accept and forgive, and let go. And then that will lead us to freedom. So that's kind of the intention for today's practice. I'm going a different direction with this class today than I did with Blissful, because in Blissful I brought in some other things. But for today in Gentle, I want us to think about this. And again, this is not about religious dogma, but I want you to think about the biblical story, because I mentioned Mary Magdalene a couple weeks ago, when there's a speech of the scripture that says he healed the 7 demons from her. Well, I find that pretty fascinating, because we have 7 major chakras. If we look at the 7 major chakras, there are things when you study the energetic anatomy on what is the inner demon or block to that chakra. First, fear. So we're going to focus on poses, and we're going to kind of move up the ladder, move up the chain of command, so to speak, in the chakras. And we're going to talk about which thing we need to focus on letting go. And then you can kind of sit with it and go, okay, well, what is my fear that I'm sitting with? Or what is my shame or guilt that I'm sitting with, or what is the mistruths or lies that I'm carrying around, right? We all have them. So let's go ahead and sit up on a bolster to start with. We'll do some pranayama, breath work. To irrigate this seed of contemplative thought, this theme and intention for today. And then, of course, you can also mull over your own personal intention for being here as well. Once you align the vertebrae, rest your hands on your lap, close your eyes. Begin to center yourself with breath. Give yourself this medicinal treatment, knowing that the breath does hold the power to simmer down your thoughts, calm our minds. The breath is a way of helping to even calm any internal emotional storms. Restlessness in the body. So that we can bring the mind, body, and spirit into unification. Help us merge back into, bless you, the divine. And that merging of the divine, I would express as being that I-nity. Because we are all a unique expression of that. Now that you've been centering yourself a little bit here with the breath, let's get right into the body. So let's crack the eyelids open. We're going to come up from this seat. We're going to stand near the top of our mats with our feet rather wide. And we're going to bend the knees and prop the elbows on top. Your hands can come together to Anjali Mudra. You're looking down right below your face. This is the bear pose. Feel the texture beneath your feet. Feel the sensation beginning to percolate in the quads. But try to stay committed. Your breath can assist. So our biggest demon of the first chakra is any type of fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of change, the fear of death, the fear of heights, the fear of this, that, or the other. One thing we can do to conquer fear is to rise up and face the fear. All right, on your next in-breath, go ahead and begin to lengthen through your legs, tilting the sit bones up in the air, and let your upper body hang in the middle. And you can determine here whether or not you want to be yin or yang in your approach, meaning maybe you want to put down your feet and straighten your legs and lift through your knees and contract your quads. Or maybe you want your knees to be soft and your feet to have a soft landing and just be like a rag doll.
Think about how fear can be paralyzing. And when that's the case, that's when we are moving towards the reaction of freeze. Fear can also make us want to run away, to hide away, thus flight. And sometimes the fear will make us fight. Each and every breath you take, just accentuate your exhalation here. Forward folds are about letting go. And even when we're noticing our breath, we breathe in, but then we have to let it go. That's the out breath. So emphasizing the exhalations can assist us with that state of surrender. Now let's go ahead and begin to heel, toe the feet more together. And this time, I do want you to plug the feet down. Get them super heavy, get them charged, lengthen your legs. Contract your quads this time and draw the navel in. Uttanasana. Inhale, slide your hands up your shins, lengthen out through the vertebrae, look out with your eyes. And then exhale, slide your hands down towards your feet and bow back into self. Inhale, take your arms out and up. Exhale, bring your hands together, hinge forward from your hips, and fold back down and in. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, let it go. Inhale all the way up. Exhale right back down and in. Uttanasana. Now be here and affirm here. Nothing and no one on this earth can hold me down or back. Not even any fear. I am confident in overcoming any fear. All right, when you're ready, you're going to turn your heels in, your toes out, and you're going to lift your heels off the floor, bending the knees and dropping the tailbone downward. So your knees are splayed apart. See if you can get your heels together for this. It's a different pose than the squat. You got it. And now walk your arms out in front of you. Now, when I walk my hands out in front, sometimes I like to do like piano hands or theme hand. That way it kind of keeps the shoulders up. Chest open. Breath can stay a little more full and vibrant this way. Also helping and assisting with balance. There is a more advanced version, but we're just pausing here today. We're starting to move up the ladder from the first chakra now to the second. The hindrance here, the inner demon here, is shame and guilt. I remember for the longest time, even I'll start to bring it up, I felt a lot of guilt and shame. Let's go ahead and drop back down to the buttocks and feet together and just flap the knees up and down. So I was the youngest of 4 girls, and the oldest 2 were 7 and 6 years beyond us. And then the one right above me was 2 years older, but we had to share a room. And we were not very alike, right? She liked to stay up, or I liked to stay up late. She'd like to go to bed early. I liked music. She liked TV. She would be in front of the mirror for an hour, and I want to be in and out of the bathroom as quick as possible, right? So we had a lot of differences. But I used to tease her a lot because she would stand in front of the mirror so much. And this was the 80s when everybody winged back their hair. And I would sing I'll Fly Away to her. And I would And, you know, I always had a tomboy figure. I was like a little string bean. And honestly, I was a little envious because she had a curvy shape. She had breasts, she had a butt, you know, I didn't have any of that. But I called her bubble butt, you know, and little things like that, right? So I'd kind of tease her, even though I was the youngest. Let's inhale, lift the chest, and exhale, fold forward, open the feet. Well, do you know what I started discovering as an adult and after getting into yoga? Because your awareness heightens, right? My awareness is heightened, and I realize when I'm having conversations with her, she's very down on herself and her appearance and her looks. That caused me to feel a lot of guilt because I felt like I was to blame for some of that. And then I had to realize all I have to do is have a good conversation with her. Say, hey, I remember saying all these things to you growing up. I am so sorry. I feel like this is one of the root causes of why you're so demeaning to yourself. And in all honesty, I know I'm not the full reason, right? But at least I made my statements, made my amends, and I let it go. I don't hold on to that guilt anymore, but I did for years. And it could be as silly as that, as something with your sibling, but it could be a really big thing. Can we give ourselves grace and mercy? Can we release that imprisonment to the past? Can we cut the cord so that we're shameless and guiltless? So affirm mentally to yourself, secure in myself, I accept whatever is. I accept, I forgive, I let go. Inhale, gently bring it all the way up. All right, we're gonna stand the right foot over. This is gonna maybe be slightly awkward, I don't know. And then send your left leg off to the side, right? This is what I mean. It's already like slightly awkward because we're creating two different shapes here with the legs. But let's try taking a handhold with the left hand to the right shin, somewhere, maybe down the shin closer to the ankle. And lift the right arm up. And as you exhale, you're gently going to lean over that straight leg. Now you're flexing that left ankle, turning the toes up. So even though we're still working the lower body, we're starting to incorporate a little bit of the upper body. Inhale, come up. All right, so you can have your hands behind you to transition, right leg straight, left knee going to bend. Your right hand will hook a hold of that left shin. Your left arm will lift overhead. And then we're sailing and stretching over the straight leg. Open up the breath. Openly receiving. And fully release. Inhale, come back up. Exhale. We're gonna bring the feet back together and we're slowly gonna drop onto the forearms and slide the arms down beside the body with the palms facing upward. Obviously, check in with your hips and inner thighs. If you feel an intensity that is too distracting to maintain, then please use your blocks or a bolster and feel free to make it restorative. This is the more yin way of kind of pinning into the joints. It may or may not be appropriate for you in this moment. Close your eyes. Really let gravity be a part of this equation here. Helping you to get grounded. And then placing your hands very lightly upon the belly. Feeling movement under the hands. Now I want to lengthen the sides of the body and give a little pick me up to the heart. So let's lace the fingers together and cup them right up underneath the base of the skull. Three more deep breaths. And we'll do one more for the hip. So pick up your feet, find your shins, big toes or inner arches with your hands. And come into happy eight. And we're going to get ready to move up the chain, so to speak, towards the third chakra. So let's release the hands from the feet and let's roll to the right side, pushing down through the left hand and come up, but you're not going to turn the face up. So basically the way you come up is the way you're going to maintain the shape in the lower body. You got it. Now for this, to make it more gentle, I would suggest your holster joining your right hip close there up. And what we'll do is we'll inhale, elongate the vertebrae, and then you want to spin and turn to face your holster. Walk your hands alongside it. Lower down to your belly, to your chest, and one or the other cheek. This may or may not be good for you, but if you try sliding your left knee up somewhat, is that helpful? Okay. So let's think about for a moment, what would be the hang up in the third chakra? If this is our place of strength and empowerment, then naturally what would prevent that is when we feel disempowered, when someone is trying to control or manipulate us or our decisions or direction. The other thing that we tend to stuff down in this region is other people's opinions and judgments about us. So as we're moving into this twist, this is what we're attempting to discover. Is this the root cause? of any of my suffering? Am I allowing someone to have power over? Am I trying to have power over someone else? Am I believing these judgments and opinions about me that really I can't process or digest because it's not true? And just as a sponge would be wrung out to get the drops of water to run down the drain, that's what we're attempting to do. We're trying to drain this away from us so that we set ourselves free. Let's slide the hands in, push down to the palms to come up. But still want this to be somewhat of a flow. Your knees turn back to face me. Send your left leg out in front of you and then bring that right foot over to meet the straight leg. And then lift the arms up overhead, and as you exhale, you're gonna turn and spin to your right, separating the hands so that the right hand can come down to the floor or to the prop behind you. The left hand can hook a hold of that right knee if that's available. Being a little bit more active in the twist. Feel as though you're breathing up and down the heart line. Basically, the heart line is like another name for the astral spine. And as you exhale, gently unwind from that position. Let's go ahead and straighten out the right leg, and then we can turn the body to the left side of the room, bending the knees. We'll prepare for the same sequence, lifting up energetically, turning around to face the back of the mat. Walk your hands alongside and gently pour down. And as you release your weight down, notice if you're working your shoulders and arms too much here. If you are, maybe try sliding the elbows slightly wider, and that way the shoulders soft. Affirming mentally within, I am strong and resilient. I'm capable of standing in my Let's slide the hands closed. Then we lift away. Turning back to face the front and sliding your right leg out this time. Left foot bending that inner thigh. Inhale, arms uplift. That also lengthens the back. And as you exhale, start to spin to the left. The left hand is okay to prop onto the bolster, or you can land it to the floor. Inhale, lift up energetically, exhale, unwind from the twist, and just bring yourself into a comfortable cross-leg position, however that translates to you. We're gonna do a little pranayama before we move on. And this is where we pump the belly in and force the exhalation out. So it looks like this. Okay, let's begin. Release. Breathe naturally. Forced focus on the out breath. The inhale will naturally come when you're ready. Release. Breathe. We're going to do one more set. Let's begin. Release. And just feel how when we were contracting those belly muscles, we were also stoking the inner fire in the belly. Maybe experience that warmth. Open up your eyes. We're going to send that bolster to the side and transfer to hands and knees. So we're going to come to tabletop position. And I'm going to give you the liberty and the freedom to decide here what it is that you need. Okay, so I'm going to give you some options. One of the options is just cat, cow, right? Moving back and forth between those two positions. Another one that you could focus on is puppy or melting heart. The one that I'm going to be practicing are kind of more of the barrel rolls or the flossing of the shoulders, where it's just kind of freestyle movements, having a little mix of that cat-cow. So you can do 1, 2, or 3, or a mixture of all the above. So things that can burden and create suffering in the heart is envy, jealousy, unforgiveness, holding on to those grievances or grudges. The lack of empathy. Hate. If you haven't reversed your barrel rolls, do that now. Because all the positive attributes of the heart are beautiful things like love and empathy, compassion, forgiveness, acceptance, tolerance. All right, let's shift forward down to the front side of the legs. And bring your arms out in front. We're lining up for Sphinx pose. Let's be pivot first. So have your legs more parallel. Your feet stretching back behind you. Your glutes are engaged, so it's kind of pushing down into your pubic bone, as well as applying pressure down through your forearms. Let your heart lift. Let your neck elongate. And now we're going to separate the feet, loosen the buttocks, walk the elbows in front of you, and place your head into prayer hands. So now, like before, the main foundation was more the pubic bone area. Now feel how the belly and the thighs become more of the foundation in this version of Sphinx. Let your belly spread out. Your heart stay open. And more than anything, breathe your way into a state or to the vibration of love. A couple weeks ago, we used that Rumi quote to investigate any barriers that we've built inside against love. Where do you have intolerance? When do you become jealous? Is it possible to override that or to release that? Out breath. Come down to your brow and slip your hands up underneath your shoulders. Pull the feet back together. Push away from the ground through tabletop position. And then take extended child's pose. It can be active or passive. So the passive position of extended child's pose, the elbows are at rest. The active variation, your arms are still actively reaching towards the front of the room where your elbows are lifted off the floor and you actually feel the stretch. So again, your choice. But as you're here, let the love in and let the love flow. Inhale, slowly start to build yourself back up by walking your hands in. And if it's not possible to sit on your ankles, then grab a block or two and place it in between your feet. I told you I'm trying to do this pose more and more. Every class in India, we did this every time.
And I don't practice it that much, so it inspired me to practice it more. So when you're here and sitting, we're gonna draw the chin in just a skosh. And then we're gonna turn the head over to one shoulder. Bring the head back. And then turn and gaze over the other. Bring it to center. Turn your head left or right, yogi's choice. Inhale, center, and exhale to the other. Do that again. Now we're moving up from the heart into the throat chakra. The barriers that create suffering here are lies and mistruths and even miscommunication. Good, come back to center, and then now tilt your head over to one shoulder. Good, bring your head back to the top, and then take it to the other. This is the new flow. The eyes can be open or shut. Lift your head back up, and halfway tuck your chin to your chest. Not all the way, but halfway. And I want you to imagine there's like a Sharpie pen coming out from the crown of your head, and you're gonna start to make this line of infinity. Go slow with this tracing. Bring the head back to center. Lace up your fingers like we did earlier when we were cupping the backside of the skull. But we're gonna lift through the base ribs so that we're creating kind of a back bend, and lean your head back into your hands. So you've got some neck support, but your throat's gonna remain open. Stay here and breathe. We're gonna do a counter for this next. Affirming, I align to speak and live my absolute truth. Release hands down, and you're going to use the block for supported ribs next. So we're coming down to the back, feet are flat to the floor, tuck and lift, and slide that block underneath the sacrum. And lately I've been noticing when I'm in this pose that I walk my feet in too far. And when we walk our feet in too much towards the block or body, then it can just slightly overflex the knees, and it can bring a little bit of compression into the low back. So if you want a little bit more space there, maybe step the feet forward if you're feeling that effect. Now we were opening up the throat. Now we're lengthening the back of the neck, gaining some traction. We've developed an inversion here with the hips propped on the block. And it's guiding the energy that we've been directing from the feet to the legs, to the hips, to the core, to the heart, now to this center. Okay, now I want you to take your longest finger of your dominant hand. And I want you to just start tapping your third eye. Tap it for at least a minute. Affirming. I see and perceive clearly. I know that my thoughts help to create my life. I purify my thoughts for my benefit and release her. While we're still on the block, let's go ahead and fly the legs up because that will continue to assist the energy of circulation to come from the feet and the legs down to the hips and pelvis, to flow from the belly down into the chest, throat, mind, waterfall. So since we're starting to talk about the third eye, we're in an inversion. Inversions are always helpful for these higher tiers. Some of the blocks or inner demons that continue the cycle of suffering in our minds is illusion, delusion, narrow-mindedness, and limiting thoughts. How many times do we have a brilliant idea and we want to pass it on to someone else because it's like, I don't know what I can do. Well, if you had the download, that was for you. Yes, you can. Bring the feet back down. Push into the feet so you can lift your hips and move that block away. Roll down to the sacrum and take a moment to hug the knees again. Give yourself a little counter stretch. Rock back and forth on your back. And now turn completely over to one side. Come to a tabletop position when you're ready. But once in tabletop, we're gonna step the hands a little bit more forward because one of the ideal poses for the third eye is downward facing dog. So curl your toes and lift the knees. Press into your hands and splay the fingers open. Stretch long through your spine. Open up some space in your shoulder blade area. Roll your thighs inward and backward. And to bring in a Bob Marley lyric. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. So worry some thoughts or a block to the third eye. That's why when you hear his music and his message, the vibration is so impactful. It can create the inner alchemy in your emotions. All right, let's come back down to the knees. We're gonna untuck the feet, sit back towards the heels, but continue to lean forward because we're going into Sasandasana hair pose to bring it to the crown of the head. So if the crown of the head represents unity,
the demon or the block or what creates suffering is the thought or feeling or idea of separation. So let's bring the hands beside the knees. Let's come down to where the hairline should be at the upper part of the forehead. And then start to send the sits bones up. Squeeze the elbows in. Pull the navel in. It's like you're creating a little bit of a cat stretch back. Your hair and scalp is touching the floor, but you're not bearing your weight into your head. It's not meant to be in the neck necessarily. So have the weight more dominant in your hands, shins. The affirmation for this pose, I am master of my energy, I am master of myself, meaning when we develop self-mastery, when we develop self-control, then we're not going to be of harm to ourselves or others because we trust and believe in that state of unity or I-nity, as the Rastafarians would say. What hurts me hurts you. What hurts you hurts me. Therefore, we try to avoid harm. All right, gently come back down. And you can sit again on the block or your heels or a comfortable cross-legged seat. We're just gonna do one more thing with the crown and then we're gonna relax. So your hands are kind of cupped like this. And you're just like, it's like raindrops falling on your head. So you're just kind of tapping your scalp, your skull. And then start to massage your scalp like you're shampooing your hair. And don't forget the lower base of the skull where the medulla oblongata is. Usually that holds some tension. As well as you can even take your wrist and apply a little pressure to the sides of your head, above your ears. And this is really great for helping to relieve headaches too. So just doing this activity so that it's bringing more of the blood flow and attention to the head. Set up for your shavasana. So feel free to use any of your props. To create any pose you're liking. Now, how does it feel temperature-wise? The air just keeps on. You want me to turn your off? You're hot? Okay. You're cool. Fun. Okay. Get nestled in. Feel free to use a blanket for weight or warmth. So if we want to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, right, that lyric again, we need a technique. So that's why there's so many different meditational techniques. And the typical one for Shavasana is just to recline, to release, relax, and let go in the physical body. But staying in that state of mindfulness, staying aware of what you're witnessing. Attempting to widen the gap between your thoughts. And you can do that by simply honing in on your breath. And you can also do this by honing in on one sense. So I thought today I would spritz you with some rose mist. Now it's simply rose water. But rose essential oil is very high vibrations, and it's actually really good for the skin. So please raise your hand if you do not want to get sprayed with this mist. So if you can, breathe in that aroma there. Maybe that's your focus today, the scent of the rose.
Stronger breath. When you build up the breath, feel free to exercise some movement, your hands and feet. And eventually make your way into a comfortable seat. Join your hands together. And we all continue to emancipate ourselves from our own mental slavery. Because only we can free up our minds. Only we can free up our hearts. And only we can free up our bodies. Let's give redemption back to ourselves. Oh, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Beautiful rest of your day. It looks like it's gorgeous outside.
There's lots of workshops here this month. I am not doing the workshops I'm supposed to, and somehow it slipped through the cracks. But it's fine because there's so many other great ones. There's a sound bath. There's an intuitive reader that's going to be here. There's SOAS workshop. I think Elaine's doing a yoga nidra workshop. So there's a lot of little extra embellishments in the studio this month for you to explore. I will be doing my restorative and sound bath next month, April.